We're going to talk about luxury brands. We're going to talk about Kering and we're going to talk about Louis Vuitton. And why? Because it's two brands two companies that actually have very interesting brands. And from an investment perspective, I think they're worthwhile having a discussion about it.
Definitely. Because they are in the news a lot.
Yes.
And there are not a lot of luxury brand companies.
Why were they in the news? I think mainly also because of the opening of China, no? That their markets they were under pressure, their profits were under pressure, and now that China's open, they might profit from that, benefit from that.
Interesting companies. So we took a deep dive. We are comparing them with each other. I'm going to talk about Louis Vuitton, or Moet Hennessy Louis Vuitton. But first of all, a little bit about the market. The luxury market, it is stated by the Wall Street, by the Financial Times, that 2% of the really rich people in the world, they buy 40% of all the luxury goods. And it is also 40% is expected that in 2030, all the luxury goods will be bought by Chinese people.
Yeah.
What is a luxury good? It's the opposite of necessities. And the best luxury goods in the world, they have strong brands, high profit margins, and timeless products.
Correct.
And so it's, from an investment perspective, we talked about water, we talked about copper, really important in the world.
Yeah.
Those goods are not important in the world.
No.
But from an investment perspective, you can say, okay, I believe in the sector.
Yeah.
And
people like nice things.
Yeah, they make nice things, yeah. I want to talk a little bit about, you're going to talk about Kering, and I'm going to talk about Louis Vuitton. And Bernard Arnault, he is, and it changes of course every day, but he's the richest man in the world. It is estimated that his wealth is around $230 billion. So he's...
But how can it, yesterday I saw Musk is again the richest.
Yes, it changes every day.
Oh, is he? But he's competing with him?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, stupid.
With the three and with Bill Gates, and so they're always competing. So he's one of the richest. Okay, it can change every day. Depends on the prices of Tesla.
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't follow those ratings. But,
me neither. I don't think it's.
But I never heard the guy being in the list. But that's because I don't focus on it.
No, me neither.
Oh, nice to know.
Yeah. He has 5 children, and they're all working in a company in really important functions. And how did he build up his fortune, his company? His wealth. He started working with his father in a construction company, and then in 1948 he bought, and it was already
84.
What did I say?
48.
Oh, in 84. He's not that old because he's 74, 74 years old. Bernard Arnault. He bought a company, and it's called Martin
Agaché Willow-Boussac.
Yeah, because Martin is a little bit better in the pronunciation of our French language.
Yes, because of my surname.
And Christian Dior was a part of that company. And then, a couple of years later, 5 years later, he bought a stake in Louis Vuitton by spending $2.6 billion of it. So there was already a lot of money, and then he built it up, and now he holds 79.5% of the share Dior. Dior is also on the stock market. So 97.4% of that company. And Dior is more a holding company because it holds 41.4% of Louis Vuitton. Bernard is the CEO of Louis Vuitton. His daughter, Delphine, and now is the CEO of Christian Dior. Since the beginning of this year, since February of this year. So Dior is a holding company that he bought in '84. It's
funny, yeah.
Funny, interesting to know, I think. What else I want to say? Oh yeah, Louis Vuitton acquired 2 years ago Tiffany & Co. and it was the biggest in that sector, the biggest deal in that sector. And he has a lot of friends in the world because he's so rich and he's well known. And one of his old friends, and I think that says something about the company.
You're meeting him tonight, no? For beers. Not.
Who?
He's not your friend.
Who?
Bernard.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, no. Oh, but he also this week he was in the news because he flew to China to talk with the ministers about the things that are happening.
Yeah.
He is also a friend of Sarkozy. You see him also on pictures smiling together with Putin. But one of his friends was Steve Jobs. Unfortunately, he died, of course. And Steve Jobs said once, You know, Bernard, I don't know if in 50 years my iPhone will still be a success, but I can tell you, I'm sure everybody will still drink your Dom Perignon.
Yeah.
So that was something about the brand and about the timeless products.
Absolutely.
So Louis Vuitton is the company is worth around, of course, that changes also every second of the day, more than $400 billion.
That's
And they had a really good first quarter because of the reopening of China, and the sales lifted with 70%. And if you look into the company, it's now trading at 820 euros. The top
pretty
was
expensive for option investors also.
Yeah. If you want to buy, one share costs you 120 euros.
820, yeah.
820 euros. The top was in this year 900. And if you look at the chart, they made a really, in the last years, a really impressive jump. And if you look at the year 2023 compared to 2022, it is expected that the revenues will grow with 10% and the earnings per shares and the earnings will grow with 10%. So that's a really good outlook. And if you calculate, then you see that the price earnings for this year is around 25, and that's not, of course, cheap, but it's always for those brands, for those companies, always higher than for example banks or in insurance companies. So 25% is not bad, and a dividend a little bit, almost 2%. You get some dividend. So I think if you look at it from a fundamental perspective, it's quite an interesting company, and they are holding like 60 different brands, and they have all kind of luxury companies and brands that they have under their wings.
Yeah.
So a little bit about Louis Vuitton.
Yeah, Kering is also a French company. They're more or less from the same time. Actually, they're
from
older.
the 60s.
They're from the 60s, yeah, but they were not doing the same thing. At that time, they were doing wood trading. So not in anything to do with luxury trading, wood trading and construction materials. And little by little, they went into the retail distribution market by, for instance, acquiring Conforama. Then they bought Fnac, which is, and also Pinot Printemps Redoute, which is, I think, Pinot Printemps, they do also things like supermarkets and stuff. It's typical French brands that you know when you go there on holiday as a child. When I went there, I see these things. There's a little bit of a link there in my
That's
head.
why you speak so good French, because
Yes,
you
yes.
always went to France.
To France, yes. So I think that's it's funny the history, because they grew into this luxury sector. You know? They didn't do that from the start. It's not like, hey, we're going to make luxury bags or we're going to make luxury clothing. What brands is Kering holding? Well, the jewel in their brand is Gucci, and Gucci is contributing for 63% of their total turnover. So you can see if without Gucci they would not be anywhere. It's really important for them. What they've done is they've been slightly moving away from these more standard retail products. They went more and more into the luxury brands. Yves Saint Laurent, for instance, is also growing quite heavily, double digit. They're now at 15% of the total turnover. In 2014, they kicked out the head designer and they applied a new person because everything needed to be changed. They also said we're going to, the wholesale part of the business is going to go out. We're going to focus only on an owned store, a properly owned store network. So they want to have the shops in specific places where they think they need to be. And that's then obviously the more expensive avenues and streets in the world, I think. What you can see is that the difference with Gucci, or for Kering in this case, and Louis Vuitton, is that Kering is focusing mainly on clothing, on textile, no, and Louis Vuitton has what you said, also the example with Steve Jobs. Yeah, they have champagne and they have many other things. So, but the funny thing is, if you see that the chart over the last almost 10 years, you see that they were not, the stocks from 2012 to 2016, they were not doing anything. They were following each other, a little bit higher, a little bit lower, and then they had some sort of kickoff. I don't know what happened in 2016 when the Brexit happened, but they flew off. Both companies, they went from around 80, 100 euros to the levels. Louis Vuitton is now trading at 820. Kering is at 500 something, but they were also almost at 700. So they came off quite heavily.
And during COVID, they had really big problems.
Yeah, you see that in COVID, both stocks they tanked almost 50%. If you look at it from a fundamental perspective, the price of Kering is 504 euros. The market gives it a price target of 650 euros. That gives you a potential, if you can calculate quickly, almost 29 to 30%. The price earnings slightly cheaper than Louis Vuitton. You pay 17 times the earnings. The profit is 4 billion. The assets they have is 34.4 billion, and they have a debt of 11.1 billion.
But so there's 1/3 of debt.
Yes.
Compared to assets.
Yes.
If you look at Louis Vuitton, they have 146 billion, and they
It's
have
about 15%.
and only 18 billion.
Yeah. It's
even
different.
less. Yeah.
It's really bad. But the funny thing is that of course the revenues of Louis Vuitton are much higher. They're at 72 billion, while Kering is just taking on the 20 I was me speaking Spanish here, 20 billion of revenues. But you see that after they made the shift in 2014 to focus more on luxury brands, their margins are actually better now than those of Louis Vuitton. So they were, I mean, it will take
And
a
that's
long time.
important for the luxury brands.
Yeah, definitely. So you see that the market cap of Louis Vuitton is 6 times that one of Kering, but the multiples, just looking from an investment perspective, you can compare these two companies pretty badly, and you can see that Kering at this moment has a more positive valuation. If you look at it from a perspective technically, you can also see that Louis Vuitton is trading at almost the all-time high, while Kering is trading at the levels of maybe COVID, more or less, a little bit, more or less 500, so something like that. So you see that they had some headwinds. There is a talkings going on that they might merge with Richemont. Richemont is a also known luxury brand. They are focusing more on watches. They have, for instance, Jaeger, Montblanc, and those sort of brands. But I think it's interesting companies, and you can many times see that in a portfolio they thrive. You know, they are okay. You know, what you say, they are stable. These companies will not stop producing tomorrow. It's something, there's always a market for it.
And what I said in the beginning, that 2% of the super rich are good for 40% of all the purchases in that sector. Now that's a group of people that will stay rich.
Yeah, you should
don't have an opinion about it, but it's
exactly. That's a fact, and we shouldn't think about it.
So if you, from an investment perspective, if you are more likely be careful that you don't buy a certain stock because you like Dom Perignon or you like Gucci, and do your homework, and it's better to diversify and say, okay, I believe in that sector, I'm going to buy them both, and I buy one for 60% and the other one for 40%, for example. But if you want to make it even more easy, there's one ETF of Amundi, and it's called the Amundi S&P Global Luxury ETF, and they hold all those companies. The first holding, the biggest holding, is Tesla. Yeah. So they say they see that also as a luxury brand.
I understand it.
And the second one is Louis Vuitton. The third one is Kering, and then you have also Richemont and Estée Lauder that are in there. So again, if you want to look for that ETF, do your homework. Amundi S&P 500 Global Luxury ETF. Quite interesting, I think.
Thank you for watching.
Nice history of those companies.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tell us what you want. Give us your thumb.
Give us your time. See you next week.
Next week.